extremely worried about the level of violence and terror that is happening within that country. We've been very clear that President Assad should stand aside and should enable a process that would bring the people of Syria together, all of them, an inclusive process that could take the country forward.
Rosalind Jordan is at the State Department in Washington, D.C., watching those comments. Rosalind, a united front between Europe and the United States, but I guess to a certain extent a tacit admission that they can't really do much else at this point.
Well, not just a tacit admission, but frankly, as a reporter brought up during the press conference, which just wrapped up here at the State Department, any good avenues, at least going through the United Nations route. And so the U.S., the EU, and other allies in the region are having to rethink how they're going to try to help the people of Syria and how to try to find a way to convince Bashar al-Assad that he needs to leave power in their view. This is a situation where the Secretary Clinton brought up something that I thought was interesting. Unlike the situation in Libya, where there was a lot of question about whether or not the National Transitional Council was the right organization behind whom the world should throw its support, Clinton today just suggested that the U.S. and the EU and the Arab League and other organizations may well want to start trying to help support the Syrian opposition, to try to help it find its footing, as it were, as a way of promoting what she called the need for a democratic and peaceful transition inside Syria. Whether or not the world actually picks up on that point and actually moves forward is something we'll have to watch. But certainly in the next week, we're going to be seeing the U.S., the EU, the Arab League, and other countries coming together in Tunisia to try to find a way to get humanitarian aid to the Syrian people. Food is running out, fuel is running out, medical supplies are in great demand, and they feel that they have to do something to at least relieve the suffering of the Syrian people while they try to deal with the larger political question of trying to move Bashar al-Assad out of power and to try to stop the violence being levied on the Syrian people.
And Hillary Clinton saying that she's on her way to that meeting in Tunisia, and at the same time talking about the disunity of the opposition movement within Syria, whether she didn't seem to suggest that she had any particularly good ideas as to how to get over that particular hurdle either, something that Nicolas Sarkozy has also been talking about.
That's correct, and I think it's because people are really trying to get a sense of where the various communities inside Syria, many of whom were able to, in essence, be bought off by the Assad regime for decades, where they actually stand. Do they have enough connections with people from the various ethnic groups and from the various political entities to actually say whether or not there can be a viable and credible opposition that the international community can support. It's been very difficult, as we all know, to get information, to maintain contact with people inside Syria, and certainly the U.S. does not want to be seen as sticking its neck out or worse, meddling in a situation where it doesn't have either the competency or the credibility to do so. Certainly, though, it does feel a moral imperative to try to move ahead, and certainly it's going to be trying to talk to other countries to find out exactly how it should proceed.
All right, Rosalind Jordan in Washington, D.C. Thanks, Rosalind.
You're welcome.
Well, within Syria itself, Bashar al-Assad's campaign to crush the protest has been continuing. There have been more clashes across the country after Friday prayers. Now, military intervention may have been ruled out for now, but the international community is still talking about different ways on how to stop the violence, even though it's come to no conclusion. Zaina Khoda has more.
Homs refuses to surrender. Opposition-held neighborhoods enduring another day of intense fire as the fight for control of Homs enters its third week. A divided world is also struggling to find a way to stop the violence. NATO took action in Libya, but says it won't in Syria.
We have no intention whatsoever to intervene in Syria. Syria is also a different society. It's much more complicated. ethnically, politically, religiously. That's why I do believe that a regional solution should be found.
The diplomatic focus now turns back to the Security Council, where France is proposing a new resolution that would include humanitarian corridors into Syria from neighboring countries. It hopes Russia and China will agree to action based on humanitarian grounds. So how would it work? Iraq has its own problems, so a humanitarian corridor is unlikely to come across its border. Lebanon and Jordan, they've made it clear they won't take part. So the only real options are from over the border with Turkey or by sea from a British naval base in southern Cyprus. So logistical obstacles as well as political.
You take a piece of land and you control it and you run on it as much as you want. If they don't agree to that, how are you going to do it? It is their country. They have a massive army, a massive security apparatus. The whole state apparatus is intact. You cannot simply go in there and say this is a corridor. They have to agree. It is they have a territorial integrity. It's a state.
Territory the state doesn't want to lose control of. Its opponents continue to challenge the authorities, this time near the center of Damascus. Gunfire and clashes in the neighborhood of Meszi following Friday prayers. Activists dubbed Friday's rallies a new phase of popular resistance, a message from the opposition that they have no intention of backing down, with or without outside help. Zana Khudr, Al Jazeera.
Well, it is now 1 year since the first anti-Gaddafi demonstrations began in Libya, and the people there are now celebrating across the country, especially in the capital. Crowds have been gathering in Tripoli, waving flags and chanting. Amongst them, Tony Berkeley, our correspondent, has been spending the day in Tripoli. Tony, what can you tell us about the day's events?
Tremendous festival going on here, Taim. All around me there's scenes of joy and celebration on this day, which is very, very significant for these Libyan people because they've been living under oppression for more than 42 years and now they are free. They're celebrating, they're very, very happy. We've had helicopter fly past, fireworks. We've also had some firearms causes for concern that maybe some of the pro-Gaddafi elements may use this occasion to strike. They haven't, but that shows there are question marks still. But this is a day for the ordinary people, the people who have suffered and lived and fought this revolution. And if I could bring in now Aladdin, who's just an ordinary businessman, you're not a soldier or anything like that. Can I ask you, what does this day mean to you?
This is, if you combine all the happiest days of my life, they pale in comparison to this day. This is the day, this is our day. This is the day, anniversary of the day we decided to take this country back, and we did.
But do you have any causes of concern? There was lots of speculation about the security aspects, the militias being out of control as a human rights organization. So as an ordinary citizen, do you have any concern?
First of all, we have to remember that these people, they're the heroes that made this day possible. They're the people who sacrificed everything to get us here. Second of all, it's really up to us or up to the government to create a program or a system for them to be reintegrated into either the army or the police. Yes, we are concerned, of course, about this and the amount of firepower that's available. But at the same time, we're optimistic that just like in 5 months we have accomplished so much, we will accomplish this as well. It's just another challenge that we will overcome.
And very briefly, what kind of Libya do you want to see emerge now?
Oh, we would like a moderate Libya. First of all, I think we've had enough extremism and all these and tyranny. It's time to live peacefully, coexist equally in this wealthy country of ours.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That seems to be the general aspirations of most people we've been speaking to. They want a new Libya. They want to shake off the shackles of the past. And we're learning basically on a weekly basis what happened when those shackles were on under the Gaddafi regime. We interviewed a very interesting man who was in the inner circle of Gaddafi, Mr. Mansour Ido, and he gave us a fascinating insight into the last days and hours of the Gaddafi regime.
Unfortunately, there was no escape plan. Gaddafi didn't plan anything, nor did his son Mu'tasim, nor the head of security. From the moment we arrived in Sirte, myself and Abdullah Sanusi advised him to leave because it was a small city and could easily be blocked. It was like a room with nowhere to go. Staying was suicide, but Gaddafi did not listen to us.
وفتح الباب وتفتح لكن ما فيش إمكانية للخروج منه. كان يقول لنا اللي خايف يمشي واللي
He told us that those who were scared could leave, but he had a warrant against him from the ICC. He didn't want to put neighboring countries in an awkward position by going there. He said he preferred to die in Libya rather than be tried in an international court.
نمشي للسودان نمشي للنيجر نمشي لتشاد. قال لي بالموت في ليبيا.
He spoke about dying all the time. He said he would die in Sirte or Jaref, his birthplace, where we tried to get to during the escape.
كان عادي يعني مع زيادة القلق
He wasn't afraid. Fear was never present. But he would get angry due to the lack of communication from his good friends in Europe, especially Berlusconi, Tony Blair, and Erdogan in Turkey. He considered them personal friends. He was disappointed they didn't try to find a solution for him.
في أوروبا وخاصة برلسكوني الموت كان حذانا في كل مكان. الموت كان في كل مكان.
Death was everywhere in Sirte, in the streets, in the homes, in the car. We became desensitized to it and it dwindled to nothing. When Gaddafi and I escaped in the same vehicle, NATO then targeted our convoy, hitting the car about 5 meters in front. Our tires were destroyed and the airbags went off. There was complete chaos, and then NATO struck again, causing severe injuries and deaths. We ran away on foot. The last time I saw him, he was sitting talking to Abu Bakr and his sons by the culvert. He wasn't scared. He was even making jokes. But you knew death was coming 100%. Then I passed out.
Tony, certainly a great deal of celebration, and understandably so, given the momentous occasions of the past year. But I understand that there are also a few people who are not 100% happy with what has replaced the Gaddafi regime. Not only the pro-Gaddafi people, but people who think that perhaps the NTC is not moving quickly enough.
Well, I think that's a general feeling even from the people who support the NTC, but they're also equally understanding that this is a massive task that lays before them. They've got to actually create a complete infrastructure, including the judiciary, security, civil administration, and everyone knows that can't be done overnight. There is a lot of dissatisfaction, most notably about the elections, because you've got national elections coming up in June. Some people think that's overly ambitious, and it should be done on a local level first. So there are, voices of concern and disquiet here, but overall I think the general message is that, listen, this is our country now, it's up to us what we make of it, and there are going to be obstacles and there are going to be delays and frustrations, but at least we are now in control of our own destiny, and I think that will spur people on. But of course they need to get results and get them fairly quickly, so it's on a time scale here, and if it doesn't sort of hurry up, the dissatisfaction will only grow.
All right, Tony Bertley, live in Tripoli. Thanks, Tony. Now, Merkel's been trying to avoid a domestic political scandal following the resignation of the country's president. Merkel says she would like the opposition to help her choose a successor to Christian Wolff. This after he announced his resignation on Thursday. Nick Spicer says this has been just one of many problems facing the Chancellor.
I'm standing in front of the presidential palace, Bellevue. The former president now, Christian Wolff, left recently, earlier today, away from the cameras. He left after not having served even 2 full years in office. He was Angela Merkel's hand-picked man as a president. Some say she chose him to not have to face him as a rival for the chancellor's job. He was toppled because of a home loan scandal that became a growing media snowball. He finally had to leave office after yesterday. State prosecutors from Lower Saxony asked the Bundestag, the lower house of parliament, to lift his immunity, so it looked like he was on the way out. Angela Merkel, the chancellor, said she would do nothing to prevent that from happening. He announced he would leave office to defend his honor. Angela Merkel said he was doing the right thing in speaking on television. Experts are saying this is a bit of an embarrassment to her, but she's riding high in the polls, and one thing that it will do is take one headache away from her of the many headaches she has to deal with, the biggest one being how to deal with the sovereign debt crisis in Europe.
Well, the question is being asked, how did it happen again? Still to come on Al Jazeera, the relatives of the more than 350 prisoners killed in a prison fire in Honduras are demanding answers. And We'll tell you who has had to hand in their resignation because of a museum heist at the birthplace of the Olympic Games.